Ow, I stubbed my toe. This hurts really bad. Then that prefrontal cortex comes in and just says, hey, calm down. It's a pinky toe. You're gonna be fine. 90% of y'all get in trouble because you be talking too much. How many people around you have displayed characteristics of just a grown child rather than an adult? A grown child blurts out what they feel. A grown adult doesn't suppress their feelings, but doesn't also blurt them out. You find some middle ground. If your happiness, if your progression, if your joy is centered on who you're becoming, not what you're getting. Do you follow me? That's where self-accountability comes in. My friends, take inventory right now. How many people in your life actually ask you that question in the four walls of your home? Probably like none. Hey everybody, welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. It's DK, your host, and today is March 11th. We have 3 skills that will make you unstoppable. I'm not just gonna give you the information. I'm gonna light it up with some stories, okay? Because, you know, as we go into the AI era, there are more and more of this information out here is getting commoditized. And so this is something you can't just chat GPT, okay? This is something that, through my observations and life experience, I wanted to bring to the podcast today to share with you all. And there's really 3 things, okay? So here's the teaser. Here's the 3 things we're gonna talk about today. The 3 skills that make you unstoppable. Or let me rephrase this title. The 3 skills that have made me unstoppable that I want to share with you as a foundation for your mindset. Number 1, EQ over IQ. EQ, emotional intelligence over intellectual quotient. All right. Number 2 is self-accountability. Number 3 is optimism. And these things sound very simple, but I'm going to color them for you today. That's what we're going to do here on the podcast. But if you didn't check out last week's episode number 54, they've been feeding you poison and calling it food. You realize that. Okay, we go really deep into how to have a clean diet in today's modern society. Number 54, check it out, everybody. Okay? We're gonna jump into it today. All right. I don't have a promo for you today. Go to Burn Bootcamp. All your camps. Don't skip conditioning days. Don't skip strength days. Don't skip bodyweight conditioning. Friends don't let friends skip camp. That's my promo today. Is consistency is king and consistency wins. That's probably should be one of our skills on our Unstoppable podcast today, but it's not. We're gonna get into it. Okay. So let's talk about EQ over IQ. What is EQ? What is IQ? Chelsea, why don't you just look up the actual definitions? You can flash these over the screen, but let me just give you the practical definition. An EQ is an emotional quotient. An IQ is an intellectual quotient. Now, these are at odds with one another. One basically is saying, I understand people and emotions, EQ, and one's saying that I can solve problems and I can do math. And I'm a good problem solver, or I can recognize patterns really well. Okay, that's EQ versus IQ. And I'll never forget the moment that I learned the difference. And first, let me tell you the difference from my world. To me, it matters a lot more to be high EQ than high IQ. It definitely does not help if you have a low IQ because it's harder to then become emotionally intelligent. It's harder to recognize patterns, and it's harder to be self-aware. Okay? But if you're separating EQ versus IQ, EQ is a skill. That's what we're talking about today. 3 skills that make you unstoppable. So EQ is a skill, meaning it can be learned. You can get better. What you cannot do is get better intellectually. You're pretty much born with your IQ. Did you know that? You can get better at certain brain games. You can get better at problem solving. You can get better at patterns if you repeat them. Super Mario is a great example of that. You can get better at Super Mario by learning the games, knowing when, the Goombas are going to attack you or whatever it is, or where you're going to jump into the ditch and it's game over. I'm talking about Super Nintendo Mario, okay? The 2D one. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
That's the best one.
That's the best one, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The new ones are too complex. You never die, basically, and you can respawn at any time. I like the ones where you play for 7 hours and you get all the way to the very end where you get to defeat Bowser. You get in your very last life, Bowser beats you, and then you have to start over all the way at the beginning with only 3 lives. But that's hard work. So it's emotional intelligence is something that you can learn. And again, the intellectual intelligence is something that you cannot learn. I learned this early. Okay, so I'm 25 years old, and I'm a trainer at the time. Listen, and the reason I say that is because I wasn't quite where I am today. I'm 38 today. I was 25 back then, 13 years ago. And I remember a mentor of mine invited me up to the very top of the Bank of America Tower here in Charlotte. Queen City is known as a little sister financial hub to New York City. We have Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Capital One, whatever, you name it, everybody's here, Fifth Third. And so my friend invites me up to this room of bankers and investment bankers. Now, if you've ever been in these rooms, everyone looks the exact same. Everyone's got a suit on. Everyone has a very similar tie on. Everyone has the black shiny shoes on. I don't. I didn't get that memo. So knowing me, you probably, if you don't know, it's covered up right now. I'm tatted up and wear backwards hats and kind of roll how I want to roll. It's always been me. Well, I get on the elevator to go up to the 26th tower, level of the Bank of America Tower, and I got a blazer on, so there's that. But I have a white tee and a V-neck with like 2 chains underneath it. I have Jordans on; they're white Jordans, by the way, and like some baggier kind of pants, like with designer belt on, and I'm like super hip, super trainer version of what all these Bank of America people would be in the building. And so obviously I noticed this right away. Self-awareness is the number one tenet of emotional intelligence. So knowing yourself, and number 2 is knowing yourself in environments in your community, knowing how you interact as a human being with the environment around you. And so as soon as I step in this elevator with these white Jordans on, everybody's got these shiny, slick shoes on. I'm like, ooh, that was a bad choice. I don't belong here. Everyone kind of like side eyes me and looks at me. I thought that was bad. Well, ding, we got to get to the 26th floor here. And I get off the elevator, and not only is the 10 people on the elevator dressed exactly the same, the 300 other people on this floor having this financial party. They're all dressed the exact same. I'm the only one in the entire building out of a couple hundred people, probably 300 people, that has white Jordans on and a V-neck with no tie. And I just feel like kind of like out of place. I don't really know myself at this stage of my life. I'm 25. I've only been around like alpha male athletes or alpha female like entrepreneurs and things like that. So I get off, and everybody looks at me, and I immediately know that I don't blend in here. Like, I'm not going to fit in here. And it's not just because of the clothes that I have on, but as you know, whatever you wear is a representation of your personality. And so I come to this room full of like data-driven engineer kind of mindset people as a super high, open creative with a bunch of ideas and a marketing mindset. And before you know it, someone asks me about Burn and then about marketing and how we're doing what we're doing. And then all of a sudden I'm like holding shop with like 50 investment bankers in suit and tie. And I have like this white tee on with some white Jordans. And I'm the one, and my buddy takes a picture of me, and I should have had it for the podcast today. But my buddy takes a picture of me like kind of holding shop in this room. And I remember looking at the picture afterward and having a complete 180 in terms of how I thought about my interactions in that room. Because in the moment, I didn't really realize I was just talking to like me and this guy. All of a sudden, people started coalescing around me. And it made me realize in that moment, like everyone in that room was smarter than me intellectually. Every single person was smarter than me intellectually. I had no idea how to have a conversation or have, financial literacy with these people. And it turns out that wasn't the interesting thing. The interesting thing was the weird one in the room. The interesting thing was the person that didn't look like everybody else. I was the only one holding court in that Bank of America Tower level 26 financial meeting that day. And I'll never forget that day because I felt so out of place at first. And then once I leaned into like who I was, I realized that people weren't looking at me because I looked out of place. They were looking at me because I looked interesting. And so, my friends, it's far more important to be interesting. It's far more important to be interested in other people, to ask them questions, to get to know human beings, to really recognize human emotional patterns rather than like puzzles. Does it help if you have a high IQ? For sure, it helps if you have a high IQ. I don't have a super high IQ, but I've practiced the skill set of emotional intelligence pretty much since those days, since I looked at that picture and realized, oh my gosh, like it doesn't pay to always be the smartest person, but what it does pay is to care the most about other people, which I hope that gives you a lot of hope. I hope that gives you a lot of upward mobility and trajectory and room to dream and to have visions in your life, because you're not just stuck with this one kind of intellectual capability that your SAC, ACT scores, or however you might measure yourself or how the world measures. Intelligence is actually wrong. Pull up your screen here, Chelsea, because I want to just talk about EQ. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you're going to see what emotional intelligence reflects right in front of you right here. It's self-awareness, emotional regulation, empathy, social skills, motivation, conflict resolution, reading the room. Reading the room. I had somebody who was a very high IQ person come into our boardroom, sit down, sit at a table, kind of metaphorically put his feet up on the table and hold shop. And this person knew they were really smart. And I admired them because they were very intelligent. But their emotional intelligence, their ability to read the room, however they came to the conclusion that it was a wise decision to kind of put your feet up on the table, put your hands behind your head and relax and kind of kick back in a pompous way. And I'm here and I'm smart and I know it. As soon as we saw this person put his feet up on the table, Morgan and I both looked at each other and said, that's not our type of person. So my friends, just trying to separate for you one skill that has made me who I am today, and from my observations as I look at leaders and observe what makes a good leader a great leader, like what's the skill set? It's the skill of being interested in other people. Like EQ can also mean people intelligence. And it bleeds into the next one, self-accountability, because the first tenet of EQ is self-accountability, knowing yourself. And so we're going to talk about that in a moment. But here's a good place for you to start. Because you're a member of Burn. If not, you might be thinking about it, or you might be somewhere else in the world and just happen to love the podcast. We appreciate y'all being here. A place where you get to practice this at Burn, I listen up trainers and members, by the way, is in focus meetings. So one thing I noticed about trainers is that we are problem solvers. We tend to have higher EQ. We tend to know ourselves and how we as a personality fit into the personalities in the environment around us. And we're less data-driven. We're less engineer mindset. We're more creative and open. And that's part of being naturally gifted at EQ. But trainers, you know what we try to do sometimes in our focus meetings, which are our 15-minute consultation time slots, in which we sit down one-on-one and really get to know our members. Do you know what mistake that we make, guys? We make the mistake of trying to solve everyone's problems, being so high EQ that you try to solve the problems of somebody that's in front of you when really all they want you to do is to listen. So talking too much when you're supposed to be listening is one area in which you can start to raise your IQ or your EQ flag and say, oh, am I talking too much or am I listening? You've all heard it, right? You got 2 ears and a mouth. 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. God gave you 2 ears because you should listen twice as much as you talk. And some of us forget that. I'm a motor mouth here on the podcast because I just have you, right, listening. I only have my experiences in life that I'm having this conversation and recalling and trying to relay to you, these skills that can make you unstoppable. Trainers try to sit down and solve members' problems for them by giving them everything. And you try to be smart, have a high IQ, do this, do that, build a plan, how many calories. Oftentimes, members just want to be heard. Think about this. I was just on a vision call. A vision call is when a new franchise partner joins Burn Bootcamp and they get to kind of have their first kickoff call with me. And, one of the things that a new franchise partner told me today that I really wanted to hone in on with you today during this conversation, just around like listening, is, she said, I purchased this location, and the one thing I wanted to do when I came in here is I just wanted to listen. I wanted to listen. I wanted to hear everything that my team had to say, that members had to say. I wanted to listen. I want to do that for 30 straight days, and I want to have no opinions, and I want to, not boss anyone around or tell anybody what to do or even interject many ideas. I just want to ask questions. I want to ask questions, and I want to listen. And it was just such a refreshing perspective, because this is what we should be doing in focus meetings when a member comes to us and they say, hey, I'm not getting the ears in the 4 walls of my house. I'm not getting anyone to ask me like what my vision is. And don't we crave that almost more than anything else? One of the things our newest franchise partner said, they said, I wanted to first sit down with my spouse and ask them what their vision was. And I thought that was just an amazing thing to sit down and do with your spouse, because how many of us in the 4 walls of our home actually get asked the question, what is your vision and why? That's a form of encouragement. That's a form of belief. Like, we care about you. We encourage you. We believe in you enough to know your vision. We want to support whatever it is that you want out of life. My friends, take inventory right now. How many people in your life actually ask you that question in the 4 walls of your home? Probably like none. I was extremely impressed when Juliana, our brand new franchise partner of Burn Bootcamp, Metro West in Framingham, it's in the Boston area, when she said, hey, the first thing that I did as an owner is I asked my husband, my family, what our vision was. Then I asked our team the vision. Then I asked the members the vision. She went around asking everyone in her life what the vision that they had for themselves was. You know why that's such a EQ-driven leadership tactic? She did that specific with intent, because people are just not asked that question. So what do we need to do, trainers, in focus meetings when a member sits down with us and they're not asked these questions like, what is your vision and why? Almost no one is getting asked that question. Have you ever asked anyone that question? You'll know, because they're like, how long do you have? I could sit here for hours and tell you and answer that question. How good does it make you feel? Imagine we're sitting here one-on-one right now, and you just sit down, you pull up a chair, you're here in the studio with me. You're feeling the energy of being in the studio. You sit down, and I ask you the question, hey, I want you to tell me everything there is to tell me. What's the vision that you have never been able to tell anybody else? Open up that door for the people in your life if you want to become emotionally intelligent. That's my key tactic. That's our tactic, Chelsea, is we ask people in our lives what their vision is and why they want it. So trainers, when a member sits down with you for a focus meeting, you've got one job and one job only. Pose that question, and then be quiet. Because we want to solve the problems, because we're compassionate, we're empathetic, we care. We naturally have high EQ, which means we're empathetic. So we want to solve problems. But it's the best thing that you can do, trainers, is sit down, pose the question, what's your vision? Why do you want it? Tell me more. And let them talk for 15 minutes during a focus meeting. At the very, very end, just recap what they said so they know that you have been there listening the whole time. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Member, I just heard you tell me that what you want more than anything is to become somebody who doesn't have to dig deep for energy so that they can lead their family from the front, lead their family with health and with a healthy heart, a healthy brain, and be able to run up the stairs, and really be an example for your family. Not just your children, you said, who are Timmy, Tommy, and Sarah, but also your husband, Jacob, right? Is that what you said? That you really got energy at the center of everything and filling up your own cup because you haven't been doing that? Yes, Devin, that's exactly what I mean. Thank you for listening, right? That's it. That's the focus meeting. So EQ over IQ. We don't need to solve everyone's problems as a trainer. And as a human being, as somebody who is a leader in your life, EQ over IQ. Emotion creates motion. We are all emotional beings. You can't do anything about it, by the way. You ever hear somebody say, I'm trying to be less emotional? What they're really saying is, I'm trying to get a higher EQ. What they're really saying is, I am trying to become better at overriding or regulating my emotions. We don't want to become less emotional. You hear me, guys? Gals, we don't want to become less emotional, meaning like we don't want to move toward like scientific, robotic, non-emotional, don't get excited, don't you get sad. We want to experience emotion. That's what it means to be alive. If you're going to feel sadness, feel sadness. Feel anger, feel anger. Feel joy, feel happiness, feel the emotional spectrum. We're not trying to get rid of that, but we are trying to regulate our emotions. When you have energy that coalesces in the form of a thought, that energy, I mean, your central nervous system, right? In your brainstem, in your spinal cord. That it's like a straw, your spinal cord that's kind of draws energy up into your brain. You can kind of think about it that way. So if you need some concept to think about, I'm not saying this is like, a PhD wouldn't examine this and say there's holes in it or whatever if they're approaching it from a scientific, more IQ standpoint. But think about it this way. That you can't do anything about having emotional reaction to the information that you get in your life. So every piece of energy comes with information. Energy and information come together. So that energy and information come up through your spinal cord, through your amygdala, your brainstem, and kind of the first place that in your brain, like from a structural perspective, that gets that energy, the first place, this might be, like I said, like scientifically not accurate, but like practically, hang with me, this helps me, and maybe it helps you, is I think about feeling the emotion and asking myself what it means, because I'm not trying to stop all emotion. That's kind of a misguided, stop being emotional. That's a misguided intention coming from a big heart. You might be overly compassionate giving that advice. What we want to do is realize that that energy that comes with that information passes through the amygdala, passes through the emotional center of the brain before the blood circulates in the brain and kind of gets up into the prefrontal cortex, the executive function of the brain, which is made to override or regulate those emotions. So, ow, I stubbed my toe. This hurts really bad. It's gonna get affected, and it's gonna get a staph infection, and it's gonna grow into this, and I'm gonna lose my this, and I'm not gonna be able to do that, and that's gonna make me sad, and right, little things happen. They can escalate. We can catastrophize. Then that prefrontal cortex comes in and just says, "Hey, calm down. It's a pinky toe. You're gonna be fine." You know what I mean? So EQ over IQ. Realize that you have the power. You have both. But EQ is a skill. You can get better at EQ. Ask people around you what their vision is and why, and listen. And then from a personal perspective, an EQ perspective, how are you getting better at your EQ? How is your interactions? Let's do this, Chelsea. Type into ChatGPT and give us a single exercise. I just want to see what it says. A single simple exercise to practice emotional intelligence, or just say to make our EQ better every day. And then we'll move on to number 2 and to number 3, self-accountability and optimism, because they all tie in with each other. We're all trying to become a better, well-rounded, more thoughtful version of ourselves. It starts with EQ. Here's, I see what ChatGPT is going with this. Here's the exercise, okay? We've called it the great gap before. The yogis call it the great gap. In mindfulness training, you call it the great gap. It's the gap between thought and then action. So what this is asking you to do, if you blow it up for us, Chelsea, it'll say the 90-second pause and label exercise. You can use this in any moment, anywhere you feel triggered, you want to correct someone, you feel frustrated in a meeting, you're about to send a strong email, you disagree hard. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super opinionated. And I don't know if you guys know that about me or not. I have very strong opinions. I am wise enough to know that not all of those opinions are correct, but I'll have a strong opinion. It was extremely hard for me to grow my emotional intelligence at the beginning. If you're a hard-headed person, if you're someone who's very opinionated, might be a softened way for us to say that, to let our ego down. But if you're hard-headed and you want your way to be your way, and your way is always right, and you know that you have those tendencies, well, honesty is probably a good policy for you. But if you are someone who disagrees really hard, then I'm not saying soften that, but I'm saying open the door by using this 90-second pause and label exercise called The Gap. Use this, because this is what's helped me overcome myself and realize that it's not about being right. It's about doing right with the people around me. And at Burn, we have a championship culture, a bunch of high performers all trying to go in the same direction. A lot of my teammates also are very opinionated. They're leaders. They got to where they are because they've got strong opinions and they think that their way is a sound way to go. So we teach them to stop, to pause when you have a thought. You know, because your blood starts boiling. You get a little red most of the time. You feel it. Instead, pause for 90 seconds. Activate the parasympathetic nervous system by breathing through your nose for like 2 seconds. Breathing out for longer. That's how you calm down. You breathe in for 2 or 3 seconds. You breathe out for 5 or 6 seconds. Say nothing. Do not type. Do not tap. Don't do the foot thing on the desk. Everyone knows underneath the table, if you're in a meeting, that you got the little foot thing going. Whether it's at your dinner table or the boardroom or the PTA desk or a parent-teacher conference, they start saying something about little Sarah, and little Sarah is a sweet little angel, and that teacher says, "Hey, she did this to Susie," and you know Susie isn't a sweet little angel. Your little sweet baby's getting blamed for something she didn't do in the classroom. That foot starts tapping mom underneath the desk. I know how it is. I've been in those situations. This is an opportunity for you to pause and for you to say, you know what? Let me actually listen. Let me take in the information that I'm getting around. Let me sit with it for a moment. And before I make my conclusion, let me pause and not talk and just let this information sit in this gap, in this void. 90% of y'all get in trouble because you be talking too much. You talking too much. You let it come out right away. You don't let that anger, that it's usually anger, right? It's usually anger or frustration or you're discontent with something. That's the stuff that makes our blood boil. And you just go and you go right away. That happens more times than it doesn't. How many people around you have displayed characteristics of just a grown child rather than an adult? A grown child blurts out what they feel. A grown adult doesn't suppress their feelings, but doesn't also blurt them out. You find some middle ground where it's called the gap, the 90-second pause and label. What is this? What am I doing right now? This is some of the stuff I ask myself silently. What is going on right now? What does this mean? Why am I feeling this way? Should I feel this way? Is this person right? Do they have merit? Okay, maybe I need some more time. Let it sit. I'm thinking all these things real time. Maybe look at how confident are they? Do I trust them? Are they believable? Maybe I don't trust them in finance, but maybe I would trust them with my kids, babysitting my children. Let's take that in. So you have this thought process where you can question why it is you feel the way you feel. Okay. And then step 2 of that is just labeling that emotion internally. Okay. So back to the PTA setting or not the PTA setting, but the parent teacher conference, and you're sitting there and Susie, she's the troublemaker in your class. Your sweet little baby's getting blamed for it. And you're angry. So you need to label that emotion. What am I actually feeling? And this is all silent. This is happening here, not the surface level anger. What am I actually feeling? Am I actually feeling angry at the teacher for blaming my daughter? Probably not. I'm not angry because I know she has goodwill. She's not here to just make me mad. That would be silly of her to want to go around making all the parents mad. So that's not her goal. Her goal is to make my kid better. Okay, I believe that. Okay, now what's next? Well, maybe I can take this home. Maybe I can just not react right now, take it home, talk to, my husband or my wife, think about it for 24 hours, and then maybe we address it with our daughter. And maybe we teach her how to control what she can control in those settings so that her teacher doesn't have to come to us. We can teach our daughter how to go to the teacher in the moment. Okay, that's good. Well, I don't disrupt the relationship I have with the teacher. I teach my daughter something. I communicate with my husband. Okay, that's probably a better situation than blurting out, that's not right. Susie's a jerk. I know it because I've seen her. Okay, you know what I mean? So that's it. We get it. But we all go there, don't we? So let's not pretend like we're immune. We all go there. Well, my goal is to just help you go there a lot less and to help you install the gap. Okay, so EQ over IQ. Chelsea, before we move on to 2 or 3, am I missing anything from this conversation? Okay. Mm-mm. Okay. Anything that we'd like to clarify, let me know. I always interject. I'm happy. I know I'm kind of weaving and going in circles on this one topic here, but I want to make sure I cover everything we need to cover so that EQ and IQ can kind of practically be understood. And we just at least get we're talking about 3 unstoppable skills. This is the number 1 skill. EQ over IQ. Pay less attention to how good you are at block blast and solving puzzles, and pay more attention to how good you are at reading people. Okay? People are the game and the gift that keeps on giving. So leadership has nothing to do with how smart you are, has everything to do with how good you can make other people feel around you. Number 2, self-accountability. So a skill that makes you unstoppable that people aren't going to talk about, since we live in the era of self-care being defined as bubble baths and some chocolate. I'm over-exaggerating, I get it. I just made a couple people mad, I'm sorry about that. But self-care has been exaggerated, has it not? And personal responsibility, I think, was the original intention, or self-accountability was the original intention of self-care. But self-care was designed to make you feel better about yourself, not necessarily happy. Happy and feeling progress are linked, but they're not the same thing. You can feel progress and still have unhappiness. You actually should feel unhappiness. If you're only after happiness all the time, then you're going to believe that self-care is bubble baths and chocolate because it makes you happy. There's that one country song. What's that country song called? It's let me do some lyrics. It's you can buy me a boat, and you can buy me a truck to pull it. You can buy, you know what I'm talking about? He goes,
Yeah.
he's like, happiness, or money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys you things that can make you happy. And it was like this whole conversation around how,
It's Chris Jansen.
there we
Buy
go.
me a boat.
Buy me a boat. Yeah. It says money doesn't buy me a boat, or doesn't buy me happiness, but it buys me a boat and a truck to pull it. And so what it's really saying is like, happiness isn't this thing that you all of a sudden you become this emotionally intelligent person and now like I had this expectation of being happy. No, happiness can buy you, or money can buy you some things, and some things can make you happy. But everybody knows as soon as you buy that boat and the truck to pull it, or as soon as you buy the house on the water, or as soon as you buy, the thing near the beach or stay in it all gets familiar and it all becomes less relevant, and material things don't really make us happy anymore. And we got to go back to the character and the personality, the person in which we're becoming. That's what really makes us happy, does it not? What makes us sad is when we break promises. It doesn't disappoint us if we crash that boat, and we might feel a little bit sad about that, but it makes us disappointed when we break the promises to ourselves. And so there's a big difference between being a little bit sad because, you got in a fender bender with your brand new car, versus feeling disappointed in yourself because you broke a promise repeatedly. So this is what we're talking about. Self-accountability. Only blaming yourself inward, only going inward. You guys, now that I talk about this, you're going to hear this 25 times today. This is the problem that is plaguing society. We think when we hear self-accountability or personal responsibility, we think like the bad form of discipline. But when we think like self-care, we think happiness or buying stuff. But really, self-care should be the same definition of personal responsibility. Because personal responsibility tells me that when we make promises and keep them, that's truly what drives that joy that's underneath happiness. So that's what we're after. If you never took a bubble bath again, and I'm being bombastic on purpose, guys, please don't be offended. If you never take a bubble bath again, but you never blame anyone outside of yourself ever again for the uncontrollable things that are happening in your life or the controllable things, you will have more happiness more of the time. You will experience more contentment, more satisfaction if your happiness, if your progression, if your joy is centered on who you're becoming, not what you're getting. Do you follow me? That's where self-accountability comes in. It's a skill. It's a skill. That means you can learn it. What are some ways? Let's go 5 ways that you can learn self-accountability. I'll give you a story. So in Burn Nation, hey, some of you might be looking into owning a franchise. Okay, so 90% of our franchise owners were members first, which makes me incredibly happy that our members love our product so much, love our business so much. It's doing greatness for them in their lives, and they want to do greatness for other people in their lives. And then from there, franchise partners, the net new locations we open, 60% of those net new locations come from franchise partners that are currently here, which means that they're happy and they're reinvesting. And so let me give you the difference between, if I were to separate our system, all of our franchise partners into these 2 categories, just to color this for you. Okay, so about 5 to 7, maybe 8% at any given time of our locations aren't doing as well as we would want them to do. Okay. The 92% are exactly where they need to be or well beyond the baseline, uber successful. So the vast majority are uber successful, and the vast minority, the 8% or less, we have work to do. Okay. We have work to do. Now, let's take the 8% and let's split that into two groups. One of those groups is just getting started and ramping up, and they're in the first year. We call it the first 13 months. They're gung ho and they're ready to rock and roll. And then there's that other group that is 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, and there's a commonality amongst that group. And we try so hard to make sure at HQ that not only the 100+ people that are HQ, but also the hundreds of franchise partner groups that are the brother and sister locations of said group. There's a commonality, and what we try to help this group realize that there's two worlds out there. There's the controllable world, the inner world we call it, and then there's the outer world. We wrote this in our latest USA Today best-selling book, Burn: 5-Step Strategy to Inner and Outer Strength. Inner world and outer world. Those that are focused on the controllables, the inner world, three things: attitude, effort, beliefs. This is my definition of it. How you approach every day, how hard you work within that level of approach, and then what are your fundamental beliefs? Because your beliefs are going to drive your actions, which are going to drive your results. And that can be, and having that outlook can go, you can control those three things in a positive way, in an optimistic way, or in a negative way. But those are the three things you can control. You can't control almost everything else. So if I ever hear one of these groups that need to still kind of make this principle click for them, when I speak with them, it's unconscious. They're not trying to do this. They hadn't worked yet enough on the EQ to know themselves well enough to know when they're blaming the uncontrollables versus blaming the controllables. Okay? And so what happens is, all of a sudden I'm speaking with them and, maybe have 5 or 6 or 7 conversations across this group. And it's like the same problems, the same concepts start to emerge. It's the market. It's I can't because of this, other business stopping me, or it's because of the landlord, or it's because of the rent, or it's anything other than my attitude, my effort, and my belief system. And so, listen, we try to pour in as hard as we possibly can to make sure that we learn the distinctions between controllable and non-controllable, and we stop blaming external circumstances and we start taking accountability. There's a book, our VP of HQ Gyms, Bryce Morrow, is one of my best friends in this world. We've known each other since freshman year of college. We played on the same baseball team together. He lives by a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko. And if those of you don't know Jocko Willnick, he's a ex-Marine, military, podcaster now. And this book, Extreme Ownership, if you could just flash it on the screen, it's pretty male, oriented, it's all about the U.S. Navy SEALs and how they lead and win. And, a lot of the stories are really driven, toward the male persona. But listen, if you want to know what I'm talking about, extreme ownership, taking accountability, attitude, effort, beliefs, and never blaming anything outside of yourself, then you should read this book, because self-accountability is a skill. To only blame yourself inward is a skill, and it compounds on top of EQ. So number one here today, EQ over IQ, you have to have a foundation of EQ to really get self-accountability. Okay, because you have to have that little gap that we talked about that leaves you room to ask yourself the question, is this a controllable or is this an uncontrollable? I'm not experiencing the results in my life that I'd like to experience. Why? Should I take accountability myself? And the answer is usually always Absolutely, 100%. Even if it is outside your control, I want you to find a way to take accountability. Find a way to take accountability. How do you do that? You always trace it back to you. You are always the person that puts someone else in a position in your life to experience the thing that was uncontrollable. Example. I got to give you just a quick gym one because they're on my mind. A franchise partner has an employee, let's just say a team member. Okay, that team member is a very strong-willed person. Okay, and then the franchise partner, because they have a strong-willed employee on their team, doesn't hold that person accountable. And then because they're an alpha or whatever, they have a strong personality, and then all of a sudden time goes by, and they were doing this, one behavior that you thought, you could really mentor them on, but now they've done it so often, so many times, where it's just a part of who they are, and you hadn't been honest with them so many times that now breaching that conversation is going to breach, their trust. Okay, so what do you do? What do? You just let them keep going? Sound like our children, parents? Do you just let them keep going? Or do you take that accountability, realize that you let them get into a place they shouldn't be in, and do you take the accountability? So instead of a conversation sounding like, hey, you weren't doing the things that I wanted you to do, that's like the bad way to have a conversation, right? It's, hey, I realized that I put you in a position to do some things that I think, although we can have a conversation about it, I think are not putting you in the best position possible. I realize this is now my doing, my positioning. I put you in this position for us to have this hard conversation. I also realize that I haven't been honest with you for an extended period of time, and I realize that that's going to make this conversation even harder. And I wanted to first apologize for that and in not being honest with you, because you're a person that's worthy of honesty, because you're an adult and I respect you. Or if it's you're a child, then I don't know, treat them like an adult, train them to be an adult, and you own it, right? You own it. Now all of a sudden, this person isn't the problem, you're the problem. And why don't we do that more? Why don't we do that by default? Well, because we have this little thing called it's a 3-letter word. You know what it is? Starts with an E, ends with a go.
Ego.
We got this ego thing that stands in the way. Thanks, Chelsea. We got this ego thing that gets in the way, and we want to be right. We want to prove our past self right. We want to prove our past self right so badly that we are willing to continue to dig ourselves a grave and compounding lie over lie over lie over lie over lie over lie, just to have that one original direction be right. In this context I'm talking about with maybe an employee, you put this person in a position, they kind of run with it. Now you never want to blame yourself for not mentoring them or putting them in a position. You know where I'm going with this? They keep going. Now all of a sudden you have that one combo. It's like a huge fallout. When from the very beginning, all you had to do was realize that the big ego was standing right in front of you, and it will do everything in its power to remain intact. It will do everything in its power to keep its promises. Notice I'm saying it's, not you. Your ego will do everything in its power to keep its promises. So much so that you will continue to make bad decisions just to make the original bad decision right. We call it digging ourselves a grave. Have you ever dug yourself a grave? Chelsea, you got any stories that come to mind? Have you ever dug yourself a grave where you just keep going and you keep going and you keep going? I've got a story. There's a West Nashville location. I had the West Nashville location, and I wasn't honest with the leadership group. It was an HQ gym. I wasn't honest with the group that was running boots on the ground, and I wasn't honest with myself. I put people in a position I shouldn't have, and I knew it, but I convinced myself of my own lie. I was like, hey, this is what you do, Devin. You put people in position that otherwise maybe somebody else didn't believe in, and you can make them great because you can mentor them and you can get them to where you want to go. So I decided not to listen to a franchise partner who told me maybe not to hire this person. I did it anyway. Won't do that again. And kept sweeping the problem under the rug over and over and over and over. Instead of doing what I should have done, which was mentor this person, rush to conflict right away, tell them when I observed that something I thought they were doing was wrong and I could correct them to hopefully make them better if they wanted to be better. Instead of that, I just said, you know what? I'm right. Just leave them there. They'll do it. Give them some time, give them some space. And I was not taking accountability for what I saw happening right in front of my face, which was 3 people that were drowning, asking for help, not receiving it. And then you know what I did? I went to them and I said, rah, rah, rah. You didn't this, we didn't that. How can we do it? We got to get better. It just got worse. What I should have done is said, hey guys, I made the wrong decision. We are ready for this as a leadership team. I'm not ready for this as a leadership team. I don't know what to do to get you guys to the next level right now. We need to retool because this isn't working, is it? So we need to get more honest. It's the foundation of self-accountability. And be very aware when we are blaming other people, okay? If you just do this one thing, take this away from the podcast today. I want you to do nothing else in the next 24 hours but to have kind of a question at the front of your mind. Put it right here. Even like touch your forehead as you say this question out loud to kind of signal that you want your brain to put it right in the front. I want you to be aware of this all day long. Okay? Where in my life can I take ultimate accountability that I'm not? Where in my life can I take ultimate accountability that I'm not? This is a skill. 3 skills to make you unstoppable. Number 1, EQ can get better. Number 2, self-accountability, a controllable. You can get better. So now we've got to keep something in the front of our mind to actually do it. Okay, this is part of the controllables for you. You can control your attitude, your effort, belief. Your belief systems have a little kind of Rolodex. I call them the Klein family values. Self-accountability is the number 1 ability in the Klein family. Okay, last one, optimism, and I'll get you guys out of here. We got about 12 minutes to go today, everybody. By the way, if you are not on YouTube, Chelsea, we're growing our subscribers, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, what are we at now?
Subscribers on YouTube are just under 800.
No, our overall audience.
Overall audience is just over 12,000 downloads monthly.
Let's go. Okay,
Yep.
well, we're growing, Burn Nation. Send this right now to somebody who likes these kind of conversations, right? If somebody in your world wants to grow, they want to do better, they want to hear from somebody who's kind of real time growing with them, not gonna try to act like I know all or do all. I'm just here growing with you guys and trying to take circumstances from my life and observations from me growing Burn Nation and having a lot of responsibility in transferring that energy and inspiration to you. Please share that with somebody else if you are learning or if you're enjoying it or you're entertained. We haven't been that funny today, though. We should probably be more funny. We haven't been that funny today. Well, this is a very serious topic for me because this is one thing that it kind of annoys me. I'm not going to lie. Like the culture of we use becoming unstoppable. Really, this is 3 skills to reach your goals, 3 skills to do what you say you're going to do, 3 skills to keep your word, 3 skills to become the best version of yourself, 3 skills to overcome adversity, 3 skills to live your best life, 3, you just keep going, you name it, right? But this isn't like funny business, so it's hard to kind of be fun. We get more humorous during like the food stuff, don't we?
We need to do like another myth one where we can be
Do
funny.
another myth one. Well, it's Chelsea, because I can be funny,
You can be.
but I can also be very serious. And today's a very serious topic, everyone. So optimism is the last one, okay? 2 worlds, right? I mean, if you have to divide the world into 2 sides, optimism versus pessimism, the optimistic people are going to absolutely dominate the pessimistic people. Pessimism kind of it disguises itself as intelligence. If you ever noticed that? It's like, oh, well, I know better and you can't do that. And here's all the reasons I know why you can't do that. Man, I've just found it to be such a drag. I'm not saying be a yes man or woman. I'm not saying be overly optimistic and, you know, give me a good word for like overly optimistic and gullible. Like, I'm not saying be like, you know, fly by the wind, very light, you know, don't have an anchor in your life. I'm not saying be like, ooh, all happy, all positive all the time when you're dying inside and you're miserable. I'm not saying that. Like this false optimism, I think, is probably a good way to put it. Something like that, Chelsea. False optimism. Yeah, that's kind of gullible. That's kind of what I'm going for. We don't want that. We want confident, realistic optimism in which I know the future's bright and I know things are going to get better. And I'm confident that things are going to get better, rather than questioning or not whether things can. I mean, just fundamentally having less doors open for you because you say no more than you say yes. Do you think that's going to help you or hurt you in life? I mean, opportunity is the spice of life. How much opportunity can you put on your table and then, you know, living a life on your terms then says, well, then I get to select what opportunity that aligns with my core values, that makes me light up, that gives me joy. So optimism and saying yes opens doors that creates opportunities. And I want you to look for ways to be optimistic. Listen, this is hard I'm a naturally optimistic person. I'm an extroverted extrovert. You put me in a room with 100 people and I want to bring 100 more in and I want to have a party for 3 days. And I want to we want to just like people, in-depth conversations, high-level intellectual conversations about the universe and the current state of physics, and you just like abstract stuff. That's the type of person I am. On the other side of that, you have somebody who doesn't like to be in big rooms, who doesn't like to have open-ended conversations about silly stuff that isn't concrete. Like, why would we waste our time not talking about things that are rooted in science and data? It seems silly. And if you're data analytically driven and you're an engineer mindset and you're constantly looking for what can break in your life, you might be more pessimistic. And it's much, much harder to do what I'm saying, okay? And I'm not saying if you are, like, to me, like, whether you're naturally pessimistic or you're naturally, what I like to say, a problem solver, or you're naturally a creative thinker. I'm either a data nerd and a math wizard and an engineer kind of thinking about the world and those two, or creative artist, super open. I don't like rules and regulations. I go with the flow. On the other side, what is flow? I know workflows. I know that's all I know is 1 + 1 = 2 + 1 = 3, and so on. Methodical order. You get my point. So what I'm saying is that no matter what your natural tendency are, that we should become more optimistic. You should become more strategically optimistic. And that being good at questioning things is a skill set. Okay? Being good at questioning things is a skill set. But how can you question things through the lens of optimism? How can you say, I'm going to find the 15 problems that are wrong with this scenario because I know the future is bright and I don't want to screw it up? You guys follow what I'm saying on that?
I actually struggled with this a little bit when I first started at Burn, and like working with you now, because obviously you have big visions. A lot of times I'm a very detail oriented person. So for me, immediately I go, okay, what are all the things that I have to fix to make sure that this happens? And sometimes it can just come off as negative. And so what I've really tried to do over the past year is, like, instead of immediately going to all of these X, Y, and Z things that are going to need to happen to make it happen, be like, heck yeah, we're going to do it. And then behind closed doors go, okay, what do I need to do to actually make that happen?
I love that, right? Because does anyone really know? Like, does anyone know how to make it happen? Can we just be honest? No one knows what the hell is going on. No one knows what they're doing. Have you ever looked around in life and just no one really knows? Look at the financial industry. They just make up language to seem smart. If you actually like took all the financial language that all of us don't really understand and you laid it out and like put it in layman's terms, it's so obvious. It's so easy. It's so easy to understand. But it's like so many of us have the need to feel accomplished. Guys, hang with me. Chelsea, hang with me, because this is what you're describing. So many of us we have the psychological makeup to have the need to feel accomplished. And so we will limit the ceiling, or we'll limit what we're going to commit to in the future, because based on what we know about our own current capacity and the problems are in front of us and what we know we can solve versus what we put in front of us that we don't have the answer to yet, but have the conviction of our will to go solve in the future. That's the dance. Did I make that intersection clear?
Yeah.
That's the dance. So it's just like, it's very easy to overcome that. You just tell yourself that you're gonna, hey, I know that nobody knows anything. So since no one knows anything, like, I'm competing with a bunch of people just like me out here. Right? Everyone's wrong almost by default. Humans are terrible at predicting the future. If you think about it that way. If you go back to like the 1950s and the predictions of the future, it is way off. It's way off. They thought we were going to have flying cars and all types of stuff by now. So realize that no one knows what the hell's going on. You're in the camp with other human beings that bleed the same blood as you, that breathe the same oxygen as you. The only reason you feel this hierarchy in life is because other people flex on you left and right to try to put you in to try to put them in their own place in the hierarchy, therefore breaking down, setting your building on fire so they can have the tallest building. So you feel the shame of other people trying to set your building on fire. And that knocks you down the totem pole, and you're like, oh, they must have a higher skill set than me. They must be smarter. They must be this. No, they just did. They took action. That's all they did. They didn't sit around being a pessimist. They didn't sit around saying, hey, I don't think we can do this. Here's all the reasons why. They said, you know what? No one knows what's going on. I think we can do this. It's going to be difficult, that's for sure. And because it's going to be so difficult, here's what I think we need to solve. Here's the problems getting on our way. So it's an optimistic long-term outlook with a pessimistic short-term punch list. That's a good recipe for you data-driven people. And then on the other side, for you dreamers, you creators, you natural artists, okay, you guys should have some pessimism. Okay, everything's not going to be just all good all the time because you're smiling. Like, smiling isn't a great strategy. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you just wish for it to be good in one hand and then you let the other hand just fill up, like the other one fills up with shit before you fill up the other one, the left one, with your wishes. Wishes don't, that doesn't, your intentions don't mean execution, people, my creatives, okay? So you need a little bit of that pessimistic outlook. You need a little bit of worry, okay? You just need a touch of worry. You need enough worry in your life to know that, hey, there are some human downfalls. Let me make sure I identify what these human downfalls are. Temperance, emotional intelligence, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. These are some things. Being too optimistic. That's when I have to go. Listen, I'm such an optimistic. I think everything's going to work out all the time. It's my hardest thing to do, to install speed bumps. I think everything's going to work out all the time. So I need somebody in my life, and I have a handful of them who are like my speed bumps and my brakes, the people who say, hey, whoa, wait a second. I get the optimistic outlook. I'm there for it. I'm here for it. But the ideas you just put forward to make this work, half of them aren't going to work. And here's why. And I need partners in my life, my wife and CEO being the number one person. I need partners in my life who are my filter. And so being 1% optimistic, I know that's a downfall. That's not a virtue. I'm not sitting here saying that being optimistic or pessimistic is a virtue in the short term. In the long run, a long-term pessimistic outlook is going to hinder you. That's for certain. But if I'm long-term, creative, optimistic, I need to have worry. There's a Japanese proverb that says, that which worries you masters you. I think Confucius said, what worries you masters you. And think about that for a moment. Because we always want to say, like, I want to eliminate my worries. No, what you're trying to do is eliminate excessive worry to the point in which it cascades into uncontrollable anxiety. And then you start catastrophizing. What worries you masters you. Who did this come from? Maybe it comes from John Locke.
I say John Locke is who it
John
came
Locke.
from.
Okay, John Locke was an American philosopher, I believe, in the John Locke had to be the 1700s, maybe.
That's making me go way back.
Go ahead, Google John Locke bio. John Locke is an American philosopher who says what worries you masters you. So this means that, hey, having a healthy little bit of worry actually really is helpful for you. Okay, he was in 1632. Okay, he was a Puritan, and he was educated at Westminster School in Oxford, where he studied medicine and experimental philosophy, becoming a physician. And he lived from the early 1700s is when he passed. So an English philosopher said, what worries you masters you. Okay, but we don't want to cascade worry into anxiety or into catastrophe. I'm just talking about a healthy little bit of worry, my optimists. Okay? And you find somewhere in the middle to where you can be long-term optimistic and short-term have some guardrails that master you. I think these three skill sets, guys, they all kind of intertwine. They all have to do with your character. They're all controllable. And they all are right in your hands. So a quick review of three skills that make you unstoppable, that I've used in my own life, that I've observed other people use in their own lives, that I now know are universal characteristics. When you focus on these three things, you're gonna get better. And it's inevitable because you are doing the work, okay? And when you do the work, you will get the outcomes. When you get the outcomes, you'll get the belief. When you get the belief, you'll do more work. And that's EQ over IQ, emotional intelligence over intellectual intelligence. It is self-accountability. Nobody can hold you more accountable than yourself, okay? That's what we've talked about all day long here on the pod. And then finally, optimism. Long-term optimistic outlook. Short-term pessimism is useful to help you install some worry that's going to ultimately master you. This is a everyday, all-day conversation that you're having with yourself. You're keeping the one question at the front of your mind. How can I hold myself more accountable in this situation? How can I hold myself more accountable in this situation? If you keep that one question at the forefront of your mind all day, every day, watch your life get better because you're going to start taking more accountability just by thinking about taking more accountability more. Inevitably, the percentage in which you hold yourself accountable will go up. Inevitably, then the people you lead in your life are going to see that. They're going to start emulating you. And then when people start emulating them for being leaders, they're going to ask that person that's emulating you, why are you doing this? Where do you get this from? And then they are going to say your name. And then you are going to start to become an influence to the people that are around you. And this is how I've gotten where I've gotten to with this formula, is that I am doing this all day, every day with everyone that's around me. And all of a sudden, what you start to do is build people that think like you. You start to duplicate yourself. It's good for you. It's good for them. It's good for your community. That's what leadership is creating and duplicating your own mindset. And so where are you at today is my final question on these 3 topics. Take an audit on your EQ. Where are you at? A scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally intelligent are you? If you were to say the last 30 days, how accountable have I held myself? Am I blaming other circumstances in my life, or am I not taking as much accountability as I could on a scale of 1 through 10? Go ahead and grade yourself. And then where am I at on a scale of long-term optimism? Do I think that the future is really bright, or do I have a doom and gloom outlook on the future? And I promise that your outlook on the future is going to determine today's actions, my friends. And so these 3 things together in your life, when practiced with that question, how do I hold myself more accountable, at the forefront of your mind, is going to be a great set of skills to make you an unstoppable human being. Unstoppable is a mindset. Unstoppable is in your control. Bad things are going to happen. It's about your ability to roll through them, to conquer them, and then to ultimately use every day, every circumstance, every opportunity presented to you, to use that opportunity to make yourself a better human being. That's what we're all about here on the podcast. And I know you're working hard in the 4 walls of the gym, so I wanted you to work hard in the 4 walls of your mind. All right, my friends, that's it for today. I appreciate you all. If you'd like to continue listening to episodes right now, Stronger Than You Think, Mastering Mindset, Fat Loss, and Recovery, episode 16 is right here for you. Go ahead and keep watching, my friends. Until next time, keep moving. 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.